Hello everyone, today we're talking about Smogon tiering and a very common misconception. A lot of people dislike the way Smogon, and in particular Smogon's OU Council, goes about tiering, and many of these criticisms may be valid, but there's one I hear all the time that is absolutely not valid, and that is the idea that Smogon loves stall. Now it's not hard to tell where this idea comes from. To use Scarlet and Violet OU as an example, we have now had a grand total of 20 bans. That is Annihilate, Archaludon, Baxcalibur, Qianpao, Chi-Yu, Espathra, Fluttermane, Gouging Fire, Iron Bundle, Magearna, Ogerpon Hearthflame, Palafin, Regieleki, Roaring Moon, Sneasler, Terrapagos, Ursaluna Bloodmoon, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Volcarona, and Zamazenta Crowned. Notice that every single one of these Pokemon is either a breaker or a sweeper. Not one Pokemon was banned for being too effective as a wall or too effective as a supporting Pokemon. Many would see this ban list as proof that Smogon favors bulkier team styles, but in reality that's not the case at all. First of all, it should be noted that some Pokemon are indeed banned for their defensive capabilities. It's rare, but it does happen. Generation 6 saw a Mega Sableye ban, for example. And even in Generation 9, we do see some Pokemon that are banned for their capabilities as a wall. For example, Giratina. Now, Giratina started the Generation ban, but it started there because of its walling capabilities. It has very mediocre offensive stats, typing, and poor speed, with Calm Mind as its only setup. Giratina, although it probably could be annoying with some Calm Mind sets, is mostly banned because it would be too good as a wall. Now, but more importantly, all of these bans don't actually help bulkier teams, least of all the bulkiest team style, Stall. But how can this be? Shouldn't Stall just get better and better the more offensive Pokemon are banned? The answer is no, and the reason is how these bans impact the metagame. The vast majority of breakers and sweepers banned are much harder for balanced teams to handle than stall teams. For example, sweepers like Espathra, Volcarona, Roaring Moon, and Magearna were generally not a big problem for stall teams. Stall teams don't have to worry about having an offensive component to their team, unlike balance, so they're free to throw all their team slots they have into dealing with these oppressive sweepers and breakers. For this same reason, breakers like Urshifu Rapid Strike, Chi-Yu, and Qianpao were very, very difficult for balanced teams to deal with, but not a big problem for stall. There are exceptions to this rule. Annihilate, for example, was definitely harder for stall to deal with than balance. You could also argue that Ogerpon Hearthflame was an example of this, thanks to Mold Breaker bypassing Unaware. Generally speaking, though, if a breaker can threaten a stall team, it will absolutely shatter a balanced team. Thus, when a lot of really powerful and insane Pokemon are in a metagame, stall flourishes while balance suffers. Stall isn't the only archetype that benefits, though. Hyper Offense is very strong in these chaotic metagames as well. Hyper Offense, or HO for short, doesn't worry about a defensive core beyond considering priority and the few offensive Pokemon that can match the speed of their team. This allows HO teams to largely ignore many powerful breakers and sweepers, since sacking Pokemon, which just means letting it die, is a common part of the HO game plan. So if all 20 Pokemon banned from SVOU were to be unbanned tomorrow, the metagame would polarize. The extremes, Stall and Hyper Offense, would become much stronger, and everything in the middle would get a lot worse. It's very difficult to create teams that have both a working defensive and offensive core when there are so many insane threats in the tier. As these Pokemon were banned over time, balanced archetypes became better and better, and these are the kinds of teams that are Stall's worst matchup. Well-built balanced teams will have both a defensive core that can last almost forever against Stall, and an offensive core that can break Stall given enough time, which the defensive core can easily provide. Balanced teams are without a doubt Stall's worst matchup. So as these metagames develop, bans happen, and the tier has fewer powerful threats, balanced teams generally become better, and Stall generally becomes worse. I'm not saying this is good or bad, I'm saying this is a trend that's been observed many times. So why does Smogon only ban offensive Pokemon? It's because it makes the metagame more stable and makes more team archetypes viable. It's not done because they love stall, and in fact, these bans tend to hurt stall. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment, and I'll see you next time.